7, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And thank you to the sound recording box. So my question is to the Prime Minister and asks, were all his answers to questions relating to the Honourable Judith Collins and Oravida checked to ensure they were true? If not, why not?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, it's the standard practice of my office to ensure that reasonable steps are taken to check proposed answers to both written and oral questions I might give this House.
So many questions.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston Peters.
When Judith Collins, A, had secret meetings with a Chinese border official, her policy advisor, and the Chinese managing director of her husband's company, Oravida, and a New Zealand diplomat and New Zealand consul, B, did not merely stop for a cup of tea on the way to the airport, but had lunch and dinner with the company, or C, as Minister of Justice and ACC, held meetings on trade matters well outside her portfolios, and D, facilitated access for products obtained by Oravida from Sanford's, a company owned in part by the National Party president's family. How can he now not sack her?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I said earlier, I think Judith Collins has been an outstanding minister. I think she's got a big contribution to make for New Zealand. I think in this particular case she put herself in the place of being held to be accused of a perception of conflict of interest. I think that's unwise. I'm sure the minister's learnt from that.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston.
How can he say, and I quote him, transparency is a good thing. As Prime Minister, I have led that charge, in quotes, when page 5 of the Judith Collins Cabinet Travel Report was blanked out entirely when the travel report was released to me.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not responsible for that, the blanking out. That comes from your office. But Mr. Speaker, here's the important point. That looks awfully like the number of donors that we know that gave David Cummins money.
Order.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston.
What about the number of donors? What about the number of donors in the White Matter Club? If that's an issue.
Order. I'm not sure where the question is. If the member wants to ask a supplementary...
Well, I'm asking a supplementary question, but he decided to put that at issue at the last answer.
And I heard that.
Righto.
I wish I hadn't had to hear it.
How can he say, and I quote him, how can he say as Prime Minister, and I quote him, transparency is a good thing. As Prime Minister, I have led that charge, in quotes, when he refuses to release the Cabinet advice on this matter, when that advice was never checked against the Chinese translation, when he totally misled questioners when he claimed the advice was checked against the Chinese translation, and when the Minister herself has so grossly failed to tell the truth over the real extent and import of her meetings involving Oravida.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll refute many of the assertions in that question.
Point of order, Speaker. Speaker, point of order.
Point of order, Right Honourable Winston.
Speaker, I think I'm entitled to some accountability in this House, and so is the country.
Order.
I've asked a serious question.
The difficulty was the question was excessively long, and the Prime Minister's chosen to answer it the way he has, just saying he doesn't agree with the assertion. The member wants specific answers. Ask a specific question.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Mr.
Right Honourable Winston Peters.
For example, Mr. Speaker, when he admits last night...
Order. Could the member just come to his point of order?
Well, I'm raising a point of order, and it's this.
And would he come to his point of order?
Well, how can he say he doesn't agree with the assertion when at the beginning of the week he said the translation was checked, and last night he said to the public on TV it wasn't?
Because the member started his question with words, how can he say, and then went on with a whole lot of things. The Prime Minister got to his feet and said, I don't agree with the assertion. That's an answer that addresses...
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Right
Speaker, no, I didn't begin that way. I began with his quote. So how can he dispute that?
I have ruled that the question's been addressed. Order. Member will resume his seat. My patience with the member won't last much longer. If the member wants to leave the chamber, I can ask him to do so. If he wants to conclude his questions, he should move to his supplementary questions. Otherwise, we will immediately go to the next question. Supplementary question.
All right.
Supplementary question, Right Honourable Winston.
How can he say, quotes, transparency is a good thing? As Prime Minister, I have led that charge when he refuses to release the Cabinet advice. The advice was never checked against the Chinese translation. Then he claimed that it was, and the Minister has so grossly failed to tell the truth over the full extent and import of her meetings.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, because I stand by the view that transparency is a good thing, and Mr Speaker, successive governments have followed the same position. The advice from the Cabinet Office isn't released.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question. Right Honourable Winston.
Given that he sacked Richard Worth as a precedent over a clear conflict of interest, much less than this one,
Order.
what has the Minister of Justice got on the Prime Minister that he won't sack her in circumstances and reasons far more serious than he has used to sack others?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, the member needs to pay attention. Richard Worth was not sacked for that, and if he goes back and looks at the records in 2009, when there was a potential conflict of interest, I took the same approach and said that I thought the minister was being very unwise.
Question number 8, the Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. What is the total